God. Hi.
Hey guys.
Everyone.
Sorry, I was getting it into the intro music.
I don't know why he loves the beat to the intro.
Yeah.
Y'all, anybody that knows us like in person and not just internet friends,
this is real.
Y'all know that that really is how he
This
acts.
is real.
So
this is real. Yeah, see, I got my cowboy stuff on, even though we didn't make it to the Super Bowl, you live and die with your squad. You live and die with your squad.
I don't agree with that, but that's not the topic of tonight. But I really don't agree with that. Like, I'm not that type of person.
It's like 10 seconds in and already.
If the team is consecutively losing, like ever since I've been with you, the Cowboys have never went to the Super Bowl. So I just feel like
you've never gone to the Super Bowl since I've been with you either.
I've never tried. I bet you if I tried, I would, because anything I set my mind to, I do. So.
Not with my debit card.
But I digress. Hey, Al, what's up, Peanut? I miss you guys.
What's up, man?
Hey, family. But yeah, so we're not going to the Super Bowl. Cowboys didn't go to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to the Super Bowl. It's just not happening.
Hey, Al's Patriots didn't go to the Super Bowl either, and they lost their quarterback. But I'm going to have to talk to him offline about that. I don't want him to be all, jammed up to end his emotions tonight.
We miss you too, Peanut. And he's talking garbage about your team too. So it's all good. It's all good. But tonight we weren't even talking about Super Bowl. I don't know how we got there. We were talking about blind spots.
Yeah.
Oh, first let's apologize for missing you guys last week, because we missed you guys last week. Keeshon had a preaching engagement Thursday evening, and we're still kind of finessing and jazzing up our schedule. Alice saying boo about the Patriots. We're still finessing and jazzing up our schedule to just kind of make it so that it fits everyone. We have a very busy life. We know you guys are very busy, so we don't want to monopolize a lot of your time. So I think that we have come to the agreement that most Thursdays at 8:30. Most Thursdays at 8:30. You can catch us here in our Facebook group. You can catch us on our YouTube or live on my personal page or even on my business page. So you can catch us most Thursdays here. But yeah, I wanted to apologize about that because it was of no fault of my own. It was a scheduling conflict.
Yeah, I had a preaching engagement, and it was really important that what God had to say that night came out, and it was a scheduling conflict, and so we've learned since then how to.
We'll have another.
Yeah.
Hey, Kenyatta, I love you, girl. We need to catch up and we need to talk.
Mrs. Edwards.
We will talk offline because I love you. Just want you to know that.
Absolutely.
But what was I saying? Oh yeah. So that'd be a whole nother topic, is family scheduling and family schedules and dynamics and how that works, and some of our organizational tools that we use as a family to schedule out our lives and to keep a cohesive family with 5 different people, 5 different things. COVID has made that a lot easier, though, and be honest. COVID has pared down our schedules significantly, but there are still some blind spots like we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about blind spots as individuals, as parents, as a couple, just, it'll be real candid and vulnerable and open. And we would love for you guys to join in on the conversation. So if you have anything to add, you can drop your comments in here because we can see them all. We finally fixed that little glitch too. So we can see all of your comments and everything that you have to add. So we definitely want you guys to add to this conversation about.
And
he just cut me off. Yeah.
Wow. Listen, like if you've got any questions, drop them in. And we will try our best to answer those questions tonight, either from information that we've obtained or just life experience.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. Let's get right into it. Blind spots. I thought that this was interesting. I'm gonna let you go.
I was actually going to ask you to help us. What is a blind spot? Do you guys know what a blind spot is? Like for me, when I think about a blind spot, I think about when you're having a conversation with your friends and whatnot, and you'd be like, hey, did you know I talk a lot? And they're like, yeah, we all knew that. Like we were all very clear the fact that you talk nonstop. And you're like, but I thought this was a light bulb moment. And they're like, no, we've all seen that. You're the only one that hasn't seen that.
Right.
That's because that was a blind spot of yours when you have those type of, aha moments, but everybody else around you knows. That typically means that is a weak area and a blind spot that you have. Hey, Maurice, how are you? So that's typically what a blind spot is when I think about it. If you wanted to go a little bit further into what you think a blind spot is.
Yeah. Hey, Mo. My mother-in-law is on. Kenyetta's on. Al's on. We got a good crew tonight. When we were talking about discussing, just kind of planning about talking about tonight, and I felt like blind spots was important for us to talk about. Tonight's going to be a night of both of us being candid in this area. So one of the things that I found interesting about a blind spot when I looked it up is a blind spot is an area of obstructed view. And that is just the plain definition of what a blind spot is. One of the things that I found interesting when I studied this subject was that blind.
He's such a preacher when he studied this subject.
Well, it's who I am. Like I can only be who I am. One of the things that I found interesting was when I studied this subject, blind spots are hard to detect because subjectively the human brain is wired to fill in or to ignore the missing part of an image.
That is very true. Most of the blind spot is when your eyeballs look at each other.
When I read that, I was just like, wow, I didn't realize that what did he say? A blind spot is when your eyeballs
look at each other. Mama beat you.
Where is Lanita? Get his phone and his charger. Take it away from him. But it's interesting how the human brain is wired to ignore or to fill in a portion of a missing image.
Right.
And so when I began to look at just the trajectory of not our lives together, but just my life, and began to look at some of the things that I wasn't seeing, some of the areas that, some of the things about my personality, some of the things about my characteristics, some of the things about just how I approach things and not seeing what I wasn't seeing.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Just because I think that as humans, we have a tendency to ignore things. And it's like, well, how can a person not see that about themselves? Like, how can you not know that this is a weak point for you? I mean, truth be told, we love ourselves too much to actually see ourselves accurately and authentically sometimes, because we all want to think that we're great. I mean, most of us do, at least. So it's really hard for us to be able to see those things inside of ourselves. So, I mean, it's not just you. Being very candid, I had a ton of blind spots that Keeshon had to show me, that even my children show me. There have been times where God will use one of my kids to mirror something that I'm weak in, and it'll show me that this is an issue that I personally have myself and I'm struggling with.
Let me take that off my notes, because that was on my notes. Nope. Go ahead.
So we'll use a kid to, mirror that. And if I'm really honest with myself, when I see that child, doing that behavior, I'm like, yeah, that's me. Right. And so that's kind of like where I have to stop and be honest and say, okay, this is an area that now that it's shown to me, now that I see it, I can't ignore it, because I think we tend to ignore certain things too. There are certain blind spots that are true blind spots, and then there are certain blind spots that we just choose to ignore. People will show us, they will tell us, but we are choosing to ignore it. So
I think that one thing I realized just from walking with God, walking with my wife, walking with family, is that one of the principles that I've learned is that when you see something or you are shown something, you are now responsible for it.
That sucks.
You are responsible for it. And so when I was kind of thinking about how we were going to present this and how we were going to talk tonight, one of the things that came to mind was what you are unwilling to see is hurting you. Because there are some side effects or some byproducts that happen as a result of your blind spots and your unwillingness to see that you have a blind spot. My grandmother used to have this saying, and she used to say, everyone's not lying. Everybody can't be lying. Everybody is saying the same thing. And these people are from different
areas
of life.
Yeah.
There is no connection that is causing them to form an opinion based upon what someone else knows you has said. And so I think a lot of the times God sends people in our lives. He sends people. He sends circumstances and situations
Absolutely.
to talk to us.
Absolutely.
And to show us and illuminate those areas that we are not able to see. And I think it is important that when we are shown those areas that we're responsible for. I don't want to be preachy, but it is who I am. One of the things that I found interesting was that when God told Abram, before his name was changed to Abraham, he was Abram. When God told Abram that he took him to a place and he said, "This land I'm going to give to your descendants," right? And the scripture ended with, "And Abraham built an altar there to the Lord."
Right.
And I said, "Okay, God, what are you saying?" He says, "When I show you something, you are responsible to build me an altar in that area.
That's correct.
Erect an altar there for me and strip down what is unlike me in that area once I show you something." And so one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about with blind spots is listening to the voices of value that are around you. Because I think there are a lot of voices that are competing for our attention. We've got the media, we've got social media, we've got the
television.
Absolutely. We've got our voices, we've got the voice of the enemy, we've got
associates, friends, colleagues,
the voice of culture. There's so many different voices that are competing for attention.
Absolutely.
But I think it's healthy for us to listen to the voices in our lives that have value.
Oh yeah.
That have value. That could be your kids.
Oh yeah.
That could be your friends. Most importantly, that's going to be God.
Right.
But it's important that we don't override what we see, because I think as people we have a tendency to, at least I did. I had a tendency to hit the override button.
I think most people do.
Yeah. You see this about yourself. You don't like it, and your unwillingness to tackle it is leaving a trail of destruction behind it. And the people that are of value in your life, these people are the people that are casualty of war, so to speak. So I think it's important that you listen to the voices of value in your life as it pertains to.
I think that's very important. I think that being vulnerable and just being able to say, I don't know it all. I don't see it all. I'm not able to be everywhere, do everything. So I need people, of value in my life to help me. No one has 360 vision. I've never met a person in the world that can see 360 degrees. Despite when I tell my children that I have eyes in the back of my head and I can see them, it's just impossible to see everything. We're going to have blind spots, both, physically and in, the spirit and everywhere else. So for me, it's important to have people who are going to, in a loving way, in a way that is going to be uplifting and encouraging and build you up, show you, okay, hey, here's an area that I think you're not seeing, and here's why. Here's what I see, because I value the people in my life that will, tug on my coattail and say, hey, this is something that you need to address. This is something that, you might not see. And it's not any fault of my own. It shouldn't be, I feel offended in any way when someone does that, because I can't see it all. And I have to be honest with myself and say, this is something that I'm just not capable of doing, and be thankful that there are people in my life who are capable of helping me to see those areas.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, but that also means build your community. Stop being so secluded and being I only need myself and Jesus. That's not how God intended for us to live. He created us for community, for people. We're each other's resources. Stop being so secluded and saying, I don't need anybody. You do need people. We all need each other.
Absolutely.
The whole, idea of family is we're all extended family. That's why I even started this group, because I want this community to be an actual community. And as we start going further into the group and into the Wonderfully Imperfect Families, we're going to start doing more activities and things like that, and being really interactive, because you need people in your life. People are our greatest resource is other people. So make sure that you're not, so closed off that you don't even have anybody in your life that can show you your blind spots, that can hold up a mirror and say, this is you and this is what's happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, when we think about blind spots, when we think about areas of our life where we are, it's intriguing when you take self-inventory.
Oh, yeah.
When you stop. One of the things that in my life has proven to be proof positive is taking responsibility for what you are unwilling to see, what it's created. Let me say that again. Take responsibility for what your unwillingness to see
has created. I see. Yeah. Because there's a ripple effect.
There is a ripple effect from what you are unwilling to see.
That's true.
And I think that ignoring what is obviously blaring in your life is dangerous.
That's true. It may not even be blaring, though. It may just be something that you did not notice. I'm being very honest right now.
Sure.
For me, one of those areas was discipline with our children. I am not the disciplinarian. I was a fairly good child. My mom's on here. She can attest to that. I was a fairly good child. So there wasn't a ton of discipline that had to happen. And so when we had our children, for me, discipline wasn't top on my list. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't like top on my list. And so I would say, if you guys didn't do X, Y, and Z, then, you get your electronics taken away. Or if you didn't clean your room, or if you didn't, take your plate off the table, you would be on punishment, for a certain amount of days or whatever. But I never stuck to that. I wasn't committed to the discipline. I would dole out a discipline, but I didn't commit to it. So I would say, you're on punishment, no electronics for 5 days. And then 2 days in, I'm like, here's your phone. Like, I just wasn't committed to it. And what it did is it created the ability for my children to think that I was lying, and the ability to them to manipulate that, because they knew, okay, if I do this, if I don't eat my vegetables, I'll still get dessert. Even though she said, if I don't eat my vegetables, I won't get dessert. Or if I don't clean my room, I'll still get my phone back tomorrow, because she's not committed to this. She's not, going to actually keep her word. And so I created those type of behaviors in them. So then I had to turn around and say, okay, this is an area that I need to address. The fact that I'm not committed to the discipline of them. Then I also need to now fix the behavioral patterns that I created in my children by my actions and by my blind spot. I had to go back and do both, because not only was there something I needed to fix in me, but there was a ripple effect of things that I needed to fix with them.
Yeah. No, I think that's, and it's so funny, because like when I look at where my responsibility, where my role was in that moment, it showed me a blind spot. So I wanted to kind of, I wanted to be candid and kind of share some of the things that I walked through as it pertains to blind spots. I think that I read a quote that says, if you take responsibility for your thoughts, you can take responsibility for your emotions. And if you can take responsibility for your emotions, you can take responsibility for your life.
That is true.
And I think that one of the areas that a lot of people don't pay attention to is emotional blind spots. Emotional blind spots are an obstructed view of an emotional area of a person's life. It is often something a person is unaware of or has chosen to ignore. Often the behaviors become habitual and normalized. Our perspective becomes skewed, and we can't see ourselves or others. Here's the part that I think really was an aha moment for me.
I love this.
As a person and as a preacher, because it hinders your ability to communicate, to contextualize both conversations and actions in a rational manner. And so just that right there, just to kind of park right there for a second. As a person, when you have an emotional blind spot, it makes your ability to communicate unhealthy. It makes your ability to contextualize what someone is saying unhealthy.
Right. Because you're going to funnel that through that emotional filter, right?
Absolutely everything is uh, what this person is trying to do to me, or what this person is saying, or how this has affected me, or how you're making me feel, or feeling as if from the onset of the situation you're my enemy, because your ability to reason or to contextualize
Right.
a statement or an action is warped. From a preaching perspective, my goal is always to understand the text, to understand what God is saying, contextualize it, so that I'm able to articulate what God is saying through this moment or through this text. And it bleeds so much into your personal life,
Yeah.
because if your personal emotions are out of whack, you can't possibly be able to contextualize. And that doesn't just mean from the natural perspective, but being able to contextualize from a spiritual or a scriptural perspective.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it was walking down this road of emotional healing, just from so many scars that I had through my childhood emotionally, just so many things that I had experienced through my childhood emotionally. And so, I don't know how many of you on here know my full testimony, but I grew up in Jersey City. The first time I met my dad, I was 13, and I met him through a window. It wasn't even through a handshake or a hug. I literally met him through my bedroom window. He stood outside. My mother stood over my shoulder as he was there. And he didn't say more to me than, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I'll never forget, he gave me 2 crumpled up dollar bills. That was my introduction to my biological father. And so my childhood in school was always, I didn't understand, even from like 6 to 10 or 12, I couldn't understand why he would not want to be a part of my life.
Right.
Like, and I began to internalize it and make it personal. There has to be something wrong with me that makes him not want to be my father. Is it my skin tone? Am I too dark? Am I, is my head too big? All all of those things. But because you're not able to properly contextualize.
You're a child and you're trying to figure that piece of it out
Right.
without having the ability to rationally have all
Absolutely.
of the deductive reasoning skills.
Absolutely.
A child doesn't have that, or all of the information about the situation, because you're a child.
And there can't be any other in your head. The reason why he doesn't want to be a part of your life is because of either something that you've done or something that you've said. And growing up in my family, growing up in my environment, it was always pointed out to me and always told what I wasn't doing, or what I wasn't doing right, or what I was doing was wrong.
Right.
And so psychologically in my head, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense as to why he didn't want to be my father, because I'm always doing something wrong.
Right.
And so you grow up with with this emotional blind spot, and it causes your emotions to be out of whack, because you're trying to process all of this stuff and not having the ability to process it. Not only because you don't have the intellectual band. God bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
You don't have the intellectual bandwidth,
right?
And you don't have a community or support system that is emotionally strong themselves,
right, to help you in that area.
Because imagine psychologically what my mother had to go through raising 3 kids on her own.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of that bled over into her dealing with me, our childhood, and my childhood was absolutely terrible. And so I found safety in culture, and belonging in church. That's where I found it. And because I was so broken emotionally, I would try to do things to overcompensate and buy affection and buy love from people. And what I mean by that is obviously at 10,
not in cash,
right, 10, 11, 12 years old, I'm not able to buy anything, buy anyone anything, but I would spend my emotional capital.
Yeah.
The emotional capital that I did have, I would spend that trying to, if I extend myself,
Right.
maybe in some capacity, they'll love me the way I want to be loved.
Right.
If I know that you are taking advantage of me,
Right.
but if I just play coy and ignore it and be the bigger person, then maybe you'll snap out of this and you'll love me and you'll accept me for who I am. Because all I really wanted was to be loved, affirmed, and accepted.
Right. The sense of belonging that everybody wants.
And those things never happened.
Right.
And so, then it's the whole psychological trauma of being told what you're not, what you can accomplish, what you're not going to be able to do. And so then you grow up, and I grow up thinking, okay, well, this is my area. My area is just going to be finances and fun,
right,
with the kids.
So fast forward to when we got married and had children. Now, carrying those emotional blind spots from his childhood, we're now married with children, and now we're in this whole parenting world.
Right.
And any of you who are parents know that that is a whole entire world in and of itself, is being parents, because you devote, most of your time and attention into that. So from Keeshon's perspective, it was like, I couldn't do much well as a child. Here
Right.
I am as an adult.
Right.
I'm going to focus on the areas that I do well, which you said were finance and fun. So he was literally the finance and fun for our family. He financed every endeavor we wanted to do. And he was the fun parent. He was the parent who, came in with the jokes and the laughs and the comedic timing. And if for all of you that know us again in person, he loves to have a good time. So he was the fun parent. And I got to be the parent who had to pick up all the other pieces of parenting, because he got fun and finance. Those were his two. He chose those going in. He was like, I want that. He took that and ran with it. So that left me kind of holding the bag for everything else.
Yeah, and
so yes, that's exactly it. I'm actually going to put this.
I was actually just getting ready to.
So Kenyetta, who is an amazing teacher, and she deals with young people, especially with special needs, she kind of picked up on part of what Keeshon's story was that he did use humor to find a place of belonging and for acceptance, because he felt like if I could make people laugh, if I could, get a laugh out of them and a joke out and make them like me, this is how they'll treat me well.
So here was the thing with that. Like, my grandmother was funny. My mom is funny when she wants to be, and my family is just a bunch of nuts, right? And so for me,
you said that, not me.
So for me, like, what I would do is I found and built my myself on being funny.
Yeah. Because
for me, it kept me from crying in a lot of situations. Mm-hmm. So a lot of situations where, I could have cried, or I could have broken down, or I could have done, whatever. I decided to make it light,
right.
To be lighthearted about it, and to find something funny about it so that it would keep me from crying. And then from honing that, and honing sarcasm, and honing being funny, I developed and tapped into something that I was like, yo, I'm naturally funny. Like, people, and the crazy thing is, like, no,
I'm not trying to say anything. Hi, Q. Thanks for joining us. Q and Yvonne just had
congratulations,
their second
baby
today. Congratulations. I am so honored that you chose to hop on, knowing that you are a father again for the second time today.
Right.
So congratulations. The question was, Keeshon was talking about how he was using humor as a child. And so Kenyetta asked, was, some of that humor part of how he found his belonging and his need for acceptance. Right. And so Keeshon was just elaborating on that as being, part of why he chose humor.
So being so broken as a child emotionally, right, which was a blind spot for me, I did not have many things that I felt like I was good at.
Right.
I wasn't good enough for my father to love me. I wasn't good enough for him to want to stick around and be in my life. I wasn't even good enough for him to want to meet me in person when he met me for the first time. Right. He met me through the window. I wasn't even good enough for him to plan how the first time he met me, how that was going
what
to
that
be,
interaction was
what that interaction was going to be like, to make it a life changing experience. It was just, I guess I got $2. Haven't seen you. I haven't bought you anything. I haven't seen you in 13 years. You are biologically my child. Here's $2. And he didn't even have the gall to, I mean, at least iron the money. Or, like lay it out. I mean, it was $2 balled up dollars, but I can't even put this in the vending machine. I mean, at least give me some crisp bills. He gonna ball the money up and hand it to me.
That might have been all that man had.
Whatever, clearly. But for me, it was being funny, finding sarcasm, finding funny, or finding the ability to make myself and people laugh was something that I tapped into, and it wasn't something that I had to work hard at. It was like, wow, I think I found something and so I kind of built myself on that, and that bled into being unbalanced, because it's, instead of like in school, I was extremely smart, but I wanted to be socially accepted because I came from a broken home. There was no love. There was no acceptance. There was no affirmation. And so the only time that I could get that outlet was going to school or going in public. And so you go to school, and instead of trying to tap into the cerebral part of me, I'm in the back of the class trying to be Jerry Seinfeld. Because if I do that, it will fill the hole and the void that I'm not getting at home emotionally.
Of course.
And it was a blind spot. And so then I grow up, fast forward, we get married. I'm not emotionally ready to be married. And I tap into the area where I think I can, what a man is supposed to be.
And what you excelled at. So it was, I don't want to, bother with some areas that I don't think I'm going to do well in, because I don't want to hear my wife say, you're not doing well in this area, because that's all I've heard as a child was that I'm not doing well in any of these, these areas. So as an adult, Q had a good question. I don't know. Did your father come from a broken home? He didn't know his father well enough to even know if he came from a broken home, but I'm sure that is part of that generational.
He's dead now, so I can't ask him.
That's part of that generational cycle.
I'm dead. I'm sorry.
But taking that, he would only want to hear the good parts, and so he knew he was funny, and he knew he could provide financially for us. So that's what he did. And he did it extremely well. He came into our relationship making sure that even in the times in the beginning of our relationship when we were broke, he was going to make sure he did every hustle and everything he could to provide. So he would, he would provide. He provided, which is what he said a man should do. But not having a father in the home, he didn't realize that there was, an emotional side to providing. There's a whole nother side to providing, but we'll talk about that another night. But then, so he provided financially, and he was the fun. And so I was resentful in our parenting relationship, because I felt as though, how come you get to pick and choose what part of the parenting you do well in and just run with it? I've never been a mother before. I don't know. I mean, my mom was great, but I mean, I was still brand new at this too. So how come you got to decide that these were two areas you were good at? So these were the only two areas that you were going to put forth your total energy in. But I never told you that my reasoning for doing that. There was never a conversation that we had about that. It was just you were doing that. And so I was like, and my whoa. My fear was, Eureka, I've struck gold. Like, let's not mess with a good thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm funny, and I now, can provide for my family. I own a business. We're living like exceptionally well. Like, let's not tinker with that. You know what I mean? And what I didn't realize was, this is going back in the beginning of our marriage, I didn't realize the emotional part of providing. I didn't realize how the blind spots from my childhood were bleeding over now into my marriage. And I wasn't able to successfully, in the beginning of our marriage, let me clarify, at the beginning of our marriage, I couldn't successfully be what I needed to be for you as a man, because those were blind spots that I was unwilling to face. And so it bled over into a lot of areas. So, one thing about peacocks is peacocks can't fly, so it's why they strut.
No, true story.
I know that.
They struck because they can't fly. So I had peacock syndrome. I'm like, yeah, girl, I made $100,000 this year. You can't tell me nothing. And she's like, yeah, but emotionally, I'm like, man, who needs emotions? We need money. Like, what are you talking about?
I'm like,
and so not being able to, which brings me to my first point, how to eradicate these blind spots, being able to face your blind spot.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be brave enough to face the area of your life that right, is giving you an issue, that is causing an issue in your life. Those areas that are not so easy to unpack.
Right. Figure out what those pain points are. Like, figure out, okay, this is an area in my life that repetitively keeps happening.
Right.
Why does this repetitively keep happening in my life? This is a pain point. This is an area that needs to be addressed. And then be willing to address it, because that's the other piece of it, is once you've identified those areas, then you have to actually take the action to fix it. And that's
one of the things I like through this journey of becoming emotionally healthy and being delivered from being emotionally broken. Why are you laughing?
Oh, I was laughing at Q. He was like, other birds is like, come fly with us. And you like, look at these colors.
You don't see these colors? Look at my chest. You don't see these colors? So one of the things about becoming emotionally healthy and being delivered from being emotionally broken, right, was understanding that God speaks cyclistically.
Yeah.
He speaks cyclistically through people.
Yep.
He speaks cyclistically through circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
And he speaks cyclistically through you.
Mm-hmm.
And so with me, I had to begin to step 2, disciple and discipline myself to see beyond myself.
Mm-hmm.
If you can discipline yourself to see beyond yourself, then you'll be able to identify the blind spots in your life.
That's very true.
But you have to begin to see beyond yourself, because everything that happened in the beginning of our marriage, everything was about how I felt, how it affected me, how it made me feel, and how I'm feeling about it. And everything was about our feel and how I felt. And we'll talk about that and about marriage and what marriage is and servanthood in another episode. But for me, I had to begin to discipline myself to see beyond myself.
Yeah.
And see how, okay, this is one situation, but there are 2 people in this marriage. Have you ever given any thought to how this may be affecting someone else? Right. The third thing that I thought that was very, very important, and it was a mindset that I had to get over: seek professional help if the load is too heavy to lift.
Yes.
There is nothing wrong with going to see a psychologist. And go see a psychiatrist if you have to.
If need be. Absolutely.
If you have to.
And a counselor, a therapist. I mean, marriage counselors are great. Your marriage does not have to be bad to seek counseling. Marriage counselors are just here to make sure that you guys are journeying along the right way. You're communicating well. You have the tools in your bag. Doing life with someone is hard. Gelling that together is hard. Creating little multiples of yourself, children, is hard. You need the tools to be able to effectively do those things.
Yeah.
See people who do them well and make sure that they are part of your life. Even if you don't have the money to go see a counselor, then maybe you need to get with someone who is wiser, who has been down this road before, who, has a good godly marriage or a good, relationship with their parents, or whoever you need to sit down and have these conversations with, and trust that they're going to give you good, solid wisdom. Not that stuff that, people tell you and it's like, I'm talking about good, solid wisdom. Sit down and have those conversations. Seek guidance, because again, we don't see it all. We don't have eyes in the back of our head. There's no 360 vision.
Man, listen, like for me, this was the most liberating thing when I was able to get rid of the angst in my head.
Yeah.
From these are practical steps that I took.
Yeah.
Because you grow up, there's no book on life, right? And so you grow up and then you're thrown out into the world. Now you're married. Now you're married with 3 kids, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, now what do I do? And you can't see the forest for the trees because of this angst that's going on in your head from unresolved blind spots.
Yeah.
That have never been resolved. Listen, there are some people that are, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old that are still living, right? Being trapped in spaces, being trapped in moments emotionally, and then it bleeds over physically because they were not able to identify and eradicate those blind spots in their life. It changes your behavior pattern. The craziest thing was in our marriage, it really affected how I contextualized behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
So she would get up in the morning, like just for an example, she would get up in the morning, right? And she wouldn't say good morning because, and I'd be like, oh, she ain't saying good morning because like she don't like me, or she feels like I did this, or it's going to be this, or it's this, or it's that. But you never stop to think maybe she's dealing like with her own issues.
Right.
Maybe she's dealing with some stuff that's going on with
Absolutely.
her.
Kenyatta said it's harder to live with that baggage because you're always in defense mode. That's exactly what we're talking about. You're always in that mindset that someone is after you, doing something to you, intentionally trying to hurt you because you haven't put down that mindset. So even in our marriage, like when we sought counseling, it was such a great feeling to be able to say, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
In any instance, whatever happens with us, we always look at it through the lens of, he's not trying to hurt me.
Right.
I'm not trying to hurt him. We're on the same team. So even if he's snippy with me or has a little attitude or something and says something and I'm like, oh, who are you talking to? It's okay. We get like that. I'm going to be honest. I get a little head roll sometimes like, who do you think he's talking to? Yeah. But then I remember he's not trying to hurt me. We're on the same team. We're looking forward together. We're standing side by side, looking in the same direction, going in the same direction. We're not fighting each other. We're not in battle, with each other. So when you are able to shift your mindset, you're able to change your behavior because it changed how we interacted with each other. Because we were always like, like we're trying to fight each other. Why are we trying to fight each other? Like we want to live together in harmony and cohesive likeness. So I
think one of the most amazing things.
Hey, Uncle Glenn. Yes.
Hey, Unc. I can't.
I was reading the comment.
No. I think one of the most amazing and liberating things for me was understanding the value and what true love looks like.
Yeah.
Because I came into this marriage, and Shalise was. What
was Shalise? I would love to hear.
No, I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a way where nobody has to go to the podiatrist after this.
Would it be me?
No, it wouldn't be you.
Oh, okay.
But there was okay. So I was completely disheveled, a mess, a lunatic, a nut. Everything that you could, I was messed up. I was messed up in the head, psychologically, emotionally. There were a lot of different things going on from my childhood. And a lot of people told Shalise, don't marry him.
That is true.
You could marry him and your life could be messed up. You're going to be somewhere smoking cigarettes, sitting on the dock of the bay. Don't do it. Stay away. Run the other way.
That is true.
And against the advice that she got, she took the risk. And she was able to, in the beginning part of our marriage, she walked in and it was true love. And I did not know how to respond to that from a healthy place.
Right.
Because I had never experienced that.
Right.
Love for me was personified by, I kept the lights on, you had food, and you had clothes. Like, that's love.
And I think older generations, sometimes they felt as though because having the ability to provide, especially in the Black culture, having the ability to provide was such a heavy burden because of the lack of education, the lack of resources, and so on and so forth. They felt as though providing was their way of showing that they love their children. Because I went out and I worked 60 hours this week to make sure that you guys had food and clothes and lights. It was something that they did to show that they loved you because hard work equaled love to them. But it wasn't something that necessarily translates to a child.
I don't understand that. I want you to tell me you love me.
Because in my head, the lights should be on. There should never be a reason why the lights are off, or you should feed me.
What's a light bill?
Right. They have no understanding of those things. So in our relationship, when we came into that, and Keeshon's mentality was, well, I'm providing for you. You should be happy. This is my way of showing that I love you.
Get off my back.
And I was like, that's the bare
The
minimum.
PSE&G is on, isn't it?
I was
Okay,
like,
get off my back.
That's the bare minimum. Like, the light should be on. Like, food
It's your reasonable service.
food should be in the refrigerator. These things should be happening. While I'm grateful for the work that you put in to do that, that does not equal you showing me that you love me and that you care about me and that, you know, your heart is for me, and just like my heart is for you. But it was those blind spots that he wasn't able to actually see, that what he was doing wasn't the totality of what a father and a husband should actually look like. Excuse me.
So having those blind spots, I mean, like, year one of our marriage, like, funny story, we still laugh about it to this day. I don't like water in my face, right? Shalise is, you ever seen like those Vidal Sassoon commercials where they in the shower?
Is Vidal Sassoon even still in business?
It is. I get you if you Google it. So, like, you know those commercials, like the shampoo, and they got the water all in their face and all in their hair and stuff like that. Like, that's Shalise. I don't like water in my face, all right? It's a no for me. I wash my face, I do all of that, but I don't like it running down my face. Just whatever. That's a whole nother episode, right? So, when we first got married and we got our apartment, or as my father-in-law would call it, our little sugar shack, right? Shalise.
Kenyatta, no. She said, I scooped the shower water.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't know. Maybe it's a chocolate thing. I don't know. So here's the thing, right? So Shalise would get out of the shower and she would push the shower curtain back. And
have the shower head facing towards.
Right. So I come in the bathroom, I turn the water on. Like, so this was back in the day before, we built our house and whatever. This old school tub. You got to turn the water on, then you got to put your hand underneath the wait for it to get. Is it warm? Okay, yeah, we ready to get in. And I would turn the water on. She would never turn the switch off. So I turned the water on to stick my hand underneath the tub, and then the water squirts. Cold water is squirting out on my face. World War VII.
He will argue with me.
World War VII.
Like, he will be really upset, and I couldn't figure out, like,
why is this such a big deal?
It's just water.
Because there was so much. It was like this love, this unconditional love, this peace, this harmony that she was exuding in our relationship, and subconsciously I was rejecting it and finding something to create a rub or to create some type of angst, because psychologically that was my safe space. Right. Because that's how I grew up. Yeah. There was always some confrontation, always some type of rub, always some type of issue, always some type of disagreement. And you find comfort in chaos. You find comfort in what you're used to. That's just the bottom line. So if you grew up in dysfunction is your comfort and your safe place. And for me, it was like, this is crazy. It's a little weird. Like, this is kind of crazy for me. So I would, not in the best way, because again, we got married very young. So say that, not in the best way. Okay. Because the Apostle Paul said there's a way, but then there's a more excellent way. She wasn't doing the excellent way. At 22, I didn't have the more excellent way. I was still doing it my way. So I would just be like, you bugging, like, you're crazy. Like, I think you need to seek help. I think that your thinking is warped. Because that's going to go over well. Telling somebody that's emotionally broken, you're nuts. I was like, you need to seek help. I was like, you need to talk to somebody about that. Like, your thinking is warped. You're not able to really understand what I'm saying to you. Like, you spazzing out over water. Like, you crazy, dude. Like, you need to seek help. So probably not the best way to show someone their blind spot or to identify someone's blind spot, especially someone close to you. I did not know that at the time. So yes, crazy knows crazy. I'm a little crazy too. So I knew you were crazy. I was like, you got a lot of that crazy. I got a little bit of crazy. You got a lot of bit of crazy. So you need to see somebody about this and like take a load off. And he was like, we're feeling crazy. That was a whole nother. I ain't crazy. I'm not crazy. That was a whole nother. While I'm making a crazy face. That was a whole nother issue. Right. But again, it was the way in which I did it. That's why I said seek wise counsel. Seek people who are older, wiser, smarter, more intelligent, who have knowledge in these areas, who can help you in those areas, because I probably shouldn't have said it that way, but it was all I knew. And I didn't have anyone in my life at that point. I had kind of shut everybody out. I love how you give yourself an out. I probably shouldn't have said it like, you shouldn't have said it like that.
I probably shouldn't have said it like that.
Probably.
So, but I didn't know any better at that time. I didn't know that, there was a better way to do that and to show people their blind spots without hurting them. Because what I was saying was the truth, but it was hurtful to him. It was in a hurtful fashion. And you can speak truth, but speak truth in love. Yeah. And sometimes the truth doesn't have to come from you. Sometimes there are certain things that I want to say to Keeshon, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't be the one to say that. But then someone else in his circle who he trusts and who is, a confidant will say it, and he'll be like, okay, did you know so-and-so said X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, I'm glad.
Good.
I'm glad I didn't have to say it. Because being the closest person to him, I sometimes don't want to have to, shoot him straight and hit him between the eyes. And so I'm glad that there are people in his life who are able to do that for him too. Now I'll do it if I have to, it's right between the eyes. But sometimes it's good to have other people do that too, because you want the peace and harmony and cohesiveness of, your relationship too. So
absolutely. I mean, I think so. One of the things I want to challenge you guys with tonight is take inventory. What blind spot do you have, right, that's causing you to be stuck wherever you are?
Yeah.
Whether that be emotionally, whether you're being stuck and being held back from pursuing your dreams, from pursuing your passion, from enjoying your life. What blind spot, right, are you still carrying that's causing you to be stuck in a particular place?
Right.
Because a blind spot just doesn't have to be emotionally. It could be trepidation or anxiety over a decision that you need to make.
It could be just physical procrastination.
Absolutely.
I'm queen procrastinate because I know I do certain things well. I'll wait till the last minute to do them because I know I can do them well in a short period of time.
Right.
And so it wasn't until, I had somebody, kind of tug on me and be like, hey, you could be more effective in your day and in your life if you didn't wait till the last minute to do this.
Right.
Well, I guess you're right.
Right. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, take inventory right now. What are some of the goals and some of the dreams, some of the aspirations that you have that you keep saying, I want to do this, but it just seems like it never gets done. I want to be free of this, but it never gets done. Take that inventory. What blind spot do you have that you're still carrying from either your childhood, the beginning of your marriage, the middle of your marriage, to where you are in your marriage, in your relationship? Is it whatever it is, take that inventory to try to understand what is it about you that's causing you to miss where,
because in all truthfulness, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I've not studied, the psychology to the extent that experts have, but I have taken a few courses, and I do understand that most of what we carry comes from our childhood. It does not matter if you had the best parents in the world, the worst parents in the world. It does not matter. What we carry in our lives every single day stems from our childhood. So we all need to take a step back and just think about those things. What were some of those areas that developed me as a person? Because all of those experiences build upon each other and develop you as the adult that you are today. What are some of those experiences that weren't that great, that developed some not great character traits in you that have now caused you to have some blind spots as a fully grown adult? Because that's usually what happens, is those experiences turn into traits, and then those turn into blind spots, because that has that ripple effect. So I would just encourage you guys to think back on those things. And some of it's not fun. I don't like doing that very much, but it's helpful to be able to have a clean slate and cleanse some of that stuff and get rid of some of that stuff. Our biggest focus with our family is being intentional to, tear down generational curses, things that have happened up his family line, things that have happened up my family line. Our biggest goal as a family is to address them, and they stop with us. So we have to do the work. If it stops with me, then I have to do the work to be free from that, so I'm not passing that on to the next generation.
Yeah, I think that your emotional life, and when we think of emotions, we think of just being happy or sad. And your emotional health is so much bigger than that. For those of us who are not necessarily as astute or in terms of studying the Word of God, or or we're just getting there, or just beginning, or we're just being introduced to who God is. God is so intentional and so concerned about your emotional life that Galatians 5, in Galatians 5 is the fruit of the Spirit. It's the fruit of the Holy Spirit, what the fruit of the Holy Spirit, what the Holy Spirit produces in your life, right? And the Bible depicts it as fruit. God is so intentional about your emotional health that majority of Galatians 5, right? The fruit of the Spirit is about your emotional health.
Absolutely. He would that our soul prosper, meaning our heart, our emotions, our thoughts, our intellect, that part, not our spirit, our soul, those pieces, those internal pieces of us that need to make sure that we're flourishing and prospering in that area.
When you look at Galatians 5, love, joy, peace, majority of the fruit of the Spirit are emotions. Mm-hmm. And so that tells me God is so intentional and so concerned about my emotional life that he would make a point for it to be a fruit of the Spirit. And so with that being said, become responsible for your thought life.
Absolutely.
You have to control your thought life. One of the things I wanted to kind of connect there is intellectualizing your emotions. Intellectualizing your emotions. Like when you ask I was doing some research. If you ask a 6-year-old how they feel about something that someone says to them, they'll probably tell you that they're sad or mad. Mm-hmm. That's a 6-year-old. If you ask a 40-year-old, they'll probably say the same. They'll probably give you an answer to the same question. They'll probably say, I'm pissed off, I'm upset, or I'm depressed about something that someone said to them, right? The 6-year-old is describing how they feel with emotions. The 40-year-old is not. Because pissed off and upset are not emotions.
That is correct.
Pissed off is not an emotion, it's a metaphor.
It's true.
Upset is not an emotion, it's an idea.
I think that naming your emotions is key. I think that as adults, we tend to not do that. And it's okay to say, I'm mad.
Right.
I'm sad.
Right.
I'm tired. I'm this. I'm that. Put a name on it, because when you're able to identify it, then you're able to fix it and figure out what it is that I need to do to change this. So definitely make sure you're able to identify
absolutely
what it is that you're feeling.
Depression is not an emotion. It's not. Depression is not an emotion. It describes a symptom of something that is going on in your mental health.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Depression is not an emotion. And so we have to begin to quantify what some of this stuff is so that we can get and eliminate these blind spots in our life. Another thing is trying to control your emotions. We've been told all of our life to control your emotions, have self-control and control your emotions. One of the things that I found through this journey of becoming free from being emotionally broken and becoming emotionally healthy is that you can't control your emotions. You have to process your emotions. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the times we control our emotions, and when you control it, you're trying to control it and you're trying to suppress it.
I was going to say control is more like the word for suppress.
Absolutely.
Like we suppress our emotions.
Absolutely. And then when you do that, there are triggers unbeknownst to you that cause whatever it is that you suppressed and did not process to cause you to react.
Absolutely.
And then you don't know why you're reacting.
I was telling Keeshon I was counseling a young lady. We were kind of talking some things out, and she was very upset. She had she was doing life with a few other ladies, and they were joining in a group, and they were hanging out together, and they had a cooking group that they got together every other week to get together and cook. Well, she found out that some of those ladies that were in her cooking group, all of them got together and went on a trip.
Oh, no.
Without her. And so she was so angry and she was upset, and she was telling me, she was like, what they did was so wrong and this and that. And I kind of like stopped her, and I was like, what they did wasn't wrong. It may have been in poor taste, but it wasn't wrong. But my question to you is, what did that mean to you? Because I'm not worried about their actions. Right. I'm more concerned about what that felt like for you, what that meant for you. And when she stopped and she thought about it, she said, it just made me sad because it reminded me of my childhood when I was constantly left out. She said it reminded me of when I was in middle school and all the cool girls got together and they did things together and they were able to hang out and they always excluded me. And so in that moment, she was able to identify her feelings and what the trigger was, where that came from, because she was like really, really upset over this. I was like, I get it. It was in poor taste, but they're free to hang out and go on vacation with whoever they want to go on vacation with for whatever reason. But I was glad that I was able to help her really get to the root of what the issue was, because it wasn't necessarily the other ladies. It was just the fact that this was something that stemmed from her childhood that she had experienced, and she was just having those triggers because of the fact that she had never identified that, and she never really rectified that. She only suppressed it instead of actually dealing with it. And when you suppress it, when it happens again and manifests in your adulthood, you're triggered all over again. And you need to be able to really identify those things.
So I mean, I think one of the things that, becoming emotionally healthy, no one can make you feel anyway.
Because he didn't know that
I didn't agree
when
with
we
that.
first got married.
I didn't agree with
when
that.
we first got married, he was like, "You making me feel like this," and you.
It wasn't until like year 3 where I was like, "All right, there may be some truth to what you're saying."
I can't make you feel anything. You feel what you feel based upon your own thoughts and beliefs. That is something that you are able to control. For every feeling you have is rooted in a thought and a belief in your own personal being. You take that thought and belief, and it produces an emotion.
Right. Like there were decisions that I needed to make, that we needed to make, right? And I felt like Shalise was the holdout. And because Shalise was no, for real.
The holdout.
I felt like she was the holdout. And it's just like, well, this is frustrating me, and this is this, and this is that. I can't do this because she's not going to go with me. She's not going to do it with me. She's not going to agree with me. The reality is if I ask myself, did I even really agree with myself about the decision that I'm going to make?
Right.
Like if I say we're going to go camping, right? And I say, well, we're not going to go camping because, I'm just using this as an example. Mm-hmm. We're not going to go camping because now this is something I'm really passionate about. It's something that I really want to do. It's a life experience that I really want to have. I'm not doing it because I feel like Shalise is a holdout. She's not going to go with me. The reality is, right, am I really sold on what I want to do?
Because if I was able to sway that, then it wasn't something that you were necessarily set on to begin with. Because no one can sway my decision when I'm rooted in something that I truly believe in and I truly want to do. So
it's easier for me to ignore my blind spot, right? And to just pin it off on you, and then have unresolved anger and subliminal anger toward you for a dream, for an experience, or something that I was unable to do or felt like I was unable to do when I wasn't really convinced about it myself.
Absolutely.
And I was procrastinating, and I was,
or not even confident in the decision itself.
Absolutely.
Because I think, I don't know, I can't really see who's on here, but I think most of us are married. I can't really see if there's any single people on here. But when you're married, sometimes you will pin things on your spouse when really you needed to be confident in that decision on your own. Right. Yes, they should be supportive and they should be there to encourage you, but there's a certain level of confidence that you have to have in certain areas. And sometimes we don't have that. And so we blame our spouse. Well, he didn't support me in that, or he didn't want to do that, so I didn't do it.
You didn't want to do it to begin with.
You didn't want to do it to begin with.
You wasn't about it.
You didn't want to do it to begin with.
Because if you was about it, you would have made it happen.
Right.
And
because there have been plenty of times where I've been like, well, if Keeshon was going to support me in it, then I probably would have did it. Well, no, I had, trepidation about it to begin with. And I use that as an excuse because this is my husband.
Because it's easier to do that than to face my blind spot.
It's much easier to do that.
The reality is what you want, you fight for.
Absolutely.
If I told you right now, I got $1 million that I want to give you, I want to bless somebody with $1 million, all you got to do is be in South Carolina by tomorrow morning. People would do all kind of stuff to get to South Carolina. They would charter a jet because that's only going to be 15 grand. Out of that $1 million, I still got 950. You know what I mean?
Why nobody tell me we've been on too long? We've been on over an hour. So
have we?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up.
So we're gonna wrap this up.
But you go after what you want to go after. So let's wrap this up real quick. Judging your emotions. Don't judge your emotions. Don't judge your emotions. Don't judge yourself for the not so good emotions that you've had. You face them, face the blind spot, you process your emotions, and you move forward. If Jesus is able to forgive you, you should be able to forgive yourself.
Absolutely.
And move forward. Staying there and judging yourself because of negative emotions that you felt is not healthy. It's not healthy. Running away from your emotions are not healthy.
All of this in here after
Yeah, I'm
for an hour. Yeah, he's such a preacher. I just told when we overtime. He said all these points. He trying to
look. You be like, I'm almost done. I'm taking my seat. I promise. I'm taking my seat.
You know we on here every week, right? You know you can.
And so the Bible says no, but I think it is healthy to face your blind spots. Realize that you have blind spots. Realize that all of us have portions of our vision, areas of our vision. What you
said I'm closing 3 hours.
3 hours later, we still on the organ, sir. I think everyone has an area of their life where their view is obstructed, and I think it's important for us to take inventory and to see what those blind spots are, so that we can become healthy.
Absolutely.
I hope this was a blessing tonight. I hope that you guys got something out of this tonight.
I'm just gonna kind of get Keeshon to wrap this up because he got some closing papers. But we're gonna wrap this up for tonight, just because I want to respect everyone's time. We do try to keep these. Yeah. We try in our head. We're like 30 to 45 minutes tops, 15 minutes questions, but that never ever happens. So it's just one of those things. But I'm gonna open it up to see if you guys have any questions really quickly before we. No, we're not gonna keep going. Don't say that. That's that preacher talk. Keep going. No.
Go ahead, Reverend.
No, we're not.
Take your time.
No, we're not doing that. We're gonna wrap this up tonight. If you have any questions, let us know. If you are in the group, you can post questions in the group too, and we'll collect all of those. And when we go live next week, we'll address those. But I really just want to encourage everyone to take the time to stop and identify some of your blind spots, because that's how collisions happen. You ever seen somebody trying to switch lanes and you're in their blind spot, and then it is a wreck, as they say down here. Up north, we say accident. But down,
wreck. But I was like, what is that?
Down here, they say wreck. So it's a wreck.
It's a wreck.
So I really want to encourage you not to wreck your life, not to have those collisions in your life. I want to encourage you to check your blind spots. Yeah. And we love you guys, and we'll be back next week, provided there are no scheduling conflicts. He said we say both. Okay, so
it's a wreck. Paul got into a wreck. Stop. I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry.
But we love you guys, and we will definitely see you guys next week. You know where to reach us in the group if you need us. If you need us personally, you guys are always free to inbox us and DM us. But we will talk to you guys soon. Q, please tell Vaughn we love her, and congratulations to you guys again. You guys, we're so happy for you guys. But we're gonna end this for tonight.
Love you guys. Talk to you soon.